Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, July 28th, 2023, and this is episode 773 of Living Free in Tennessee. And I don't necessarily expect a bunch of you to jump on this early in the morning, although we are before work time for some of you, right? But I am headed out of town to meet with the Self-Reliance Festival coordination team. By out of town, I mean not very far away. We're going to be near Camden, just going through all of the things about the event, making sure we're all aware of what's going on, aware of who's coordinating what, and we're doing it in person because it's a little bit easier. And I need to be out the door by 9. So, hello, Colorado. I can't see who you are. You are a Facebook user, but welcome. So I thought I'd do Homestead happenings before I leave so we can publish it by tonight so we stay on the podcast schedule. So I'm going to talk about proper tire selection, the oven turning on in Tennessee, getting ready for fall, and the race to make salsa. Yes, Tori, holy crap, I am early today. My goal is to get this show done within about a half hour because I got a ride showing up at 9 o'clock and I got to be ready. And I have beans to can because I canned my beans last night and the lids did not seal on 3 of the 5 jars. Don't know why. So they're back in the canner. If Tactical wanders through, I may have him do the next step of canning if it yells at me, but it has not yelled at me yet. Anyway, before we do that, I want to jump into our highlighted event for today's show, and that is chicken processing. Now, if you've already taken a chicken processing class, my question to you is this. Have you taken a chicken processing class with Joel Salatin? That dude is a master processor. So on October 16th in Camden, Tennessee, right after Self-Reliance Festival, first thing in the morning, we're going to process chickens. I'm going to start with a demo from Joel Salatin. If you are coming to Self-Reliance Festival and you want to talk to Joel, the chicken processing class will be fewer people. That's actually a really good opportunity to do that. But the other thing we know is that watching how different people eviscerate chickens and process chickens, it helps you see different techniques. And while there is a technique, there are multiple techniques. And it's kind of fun to watch that. So that class is available at selfreliancefestival.com on early bird pricing through August 1st. I also want to thank our 2 sponsors of today's show. The first one is Agorist Tax Advice. I just saw Matthew Sursley last week. So Matthew Sursley with Agorist Tax Advice knows so much about the tax code that he is a super helpful resource for you when you're structuring your business so that you can look through your finances, look through your business dealings and say, okay, here are some different options for how to structure yourself. These are the write-offs associated with those. This is how to track those so that if the great audit comes in, you have your paperwork in order so that you pay less of your money to the government. It's your money. It should stay in your pocket. Head on over to agoristaxadvice.com to find out more about that. Our second sponsor of today's show is my bag guy, Discount Mylar Bags. They've been supporting Holler Roast Coffee with really good pricing on bags since 2016. And he was one of the first people to ask me to sponsor the show back before I had sponsorship opportunities. They have a great set of food storage best practices resources over at discountmylarbags.com. Plus, Toby leverages his ability to buy in bulk and package smaller to pass on savings to you. So check out discountmylarbags.com. Finally, we have a homesteading meetup on August 5th here at the Holler Homestead. And I started it under the group title of the Homesteaders Alliance of DeKalb County, but it's for DeKalb, Putnam, White, Cannon, like all of the surrounding counties, looking to get a regular monthly meeting going here. And then hopefully as other counties reach more people in their counties, they will splinter off and have their own county-centric one. But I wanted to start regionally. That is at 4:30 p.m. on Saturday, August 5th. And it's a potluck thing. The event is posted on Facebook. I'll actually get it up on livingfreeintennessee.com. Freedom Cells, you are also invited. So we're really looking at getting some more in-person interaction in our area in the sort of the food and self-reliance network. With that, it's time for our first segment of today's show. Good morning, Jenny Hill. You're up early. Hope you're feeling well today. Featured Forage is where we talk about what is coming off the land. And finally, the goldenrod is here. So my hillside garden has continued to be the place that I don't keep the weeding under control. Now, what the weeds are this time is I have wild roses up there, and apple mint has taken over the world, and the strawberries are just like carpeting the ground. And the banana looks great. The banana bush looks great. I've got echinacea up there, all of which are forage things, right? But the goldenrod, as a result, has arrived. And that's because when you let goldenrod get tall, it flowers. So I harvested some for my winter like herbal collection. It's drying at air temperature in my kitchen on a cookie sheet, like I always dry stuff. Red clover looks a little stressed out right now. There's still some good ones to be had. So if you're going to get red clover, I would grab some now. There's probably going to be a resurgence in the fall, but that is happening there. And I got a surprise sunflower in my food forest. So I took all of my leftover seeds early in the spring and spread them out, like garden seeds, flower seeds, whatever, spread them all over the food forest area just because I thought that would be fun. And apparently one sunflower made it. Most of the stuff didn't do anything. I haven't really maintained that area, and other pioneering plants have been stronger than that. And yes, Bobby says, I saw your TikTok about your tomatoes and they look beautiful. They're doing the best they've done this year. I'm heading out, like we're heading into oven time. So I'll talk about that. So we've had a relatively cool summer here, even though we think it was hot compared to last year and the last few years. And the humidity has not been like dynamite. Well, the humidity is now dynamite, and it's going to be near 100 degrees today. And this is when my plants get really stressed in the garden. And so I realized like some of my success with the garden this year is because I've put more attention into it. But it's also because Mother Nature has been kinder to me. So hopefully I can talk the redneck into putting some more shade cloth up in the upper garden. And I wish we had the shade cloth up under Taj Mahal. We don't right now. And that would really help my tomatoes. I will be hanging burlap around the bottom of the buckets that they're in because those are black and attract the sun. We've been rooting willow cuttings as well for fodder trees. So that's all what we're getting off the land right now. There are other things out there, but those are the things that I came across this week that I was messing with. Next up, I'll talk about livestock. This is where we talk about the critters on the homestead. 2 baby dead ducks. So we have 2 sets of baby ducks. One we call the teenagers because they are older, and the others are about 4 weeks old. They're maybe 8 to 10 inches tall at this point. And randomly yesterday, 2 were dead when Tactical went out. I don't know if it could be because of the heat. I noticed one sort of had some respiratory distress, so it could be that. What we did is we moved their tractor to a totally new spot, bleached and cleaned out everything, and I checked every other one for any respiratory distress. Didn't have any. My theory is it's more about the heat than anything else, but with respiratory stuff, it could have been that too. And we're actually starting the deep litter method in the tractor because we don't really have the space to move the chicken tractor around with ducks in it, ruining. Ducks are like soil compactors, so if you concentrate them, so we don't really want them flowing throughout the property doing that. And we'll see how it goes. Meanwhile, the teenage ducks have been integrated with the duck flocks. And yesterday I saw the former generation of ducks walking with their drake, and I saw the teenagers following. So they've actually started hanging out together. Therefore, we have witnessed teenage duck joy. You know what teenage duck joy is? Teenage duck joy is when they discover, there's a pond. It's really fun to watch that for the first time. So the teenagers have found the pond, and they are trained to go to bed on call. So they're actually better at it than the other ducks right now. The muscovies are like pitching a fit about that. And we have not had luck reproducing muscovies at all. That was the plan with the muscovies. We've had much more luck with the khaki Campbells. So we may be phasing out of the muscovies. I don't know. We'll see. I wanted to have a flock of muscovies that self-replicated. And what has been the issue here is that they did set eggs and hatch eggs for one set. And we got one duck, and that one duck died. I think we had two ducks at first, and then we had one duck. So the keeping alive of the baby ducks on my property has not been good, and I suspect predators of the feline variety, or it could have been snakes or something. We had rats we had a really bad rat infestation last year, didn't we? So yeah, it could have been the rats. I don't know, but if they don't reproduce, I'm suspecting we're gonna have duck stew because they eat and they are not giving back. So we will see. The breast chicken. So I have a Victory Garden style area where the chickens are. There's no garden in there right now. So they are let out and they rip up one side of a pasture and then 1 year and then the other side another year, and I can plant on either side. And I'm doing that because we got rid of the pigs and I wanted to deal with kitchen waste and other things. And we do compost it, but it's actually nice to turn some of that into eggs. So they are now well versed in how to eat kitchen scraps, and they get excited when those come down. We have an area down there with cinder blocks for the kitchen scraps. I may start making them into slops, so heating them up on the stove before I give them to them, just to make them more digestible, because the raw vegetables they're not as into, and except for the tomatoes, as the cooked. So that's just something to observe. And they're doing great. They put themselves to bed. The door is automated on the Holler Roost, and it's pretty cool. And then our latest form of livestock are ants. I've never really had it. I mean, I usually get a few drive-by ants, but like in the last week or two, ants everywhere. I've got ant hills all over the property. The fire ants have arrived in the holler, which is a huge bummer. And I need to get some orange oil for that. But not super stoked about the ants. Next segment is grow. By the way, guys, if you have questions, put them in all caps. This is where we talk about what we're growing on the homestead. And it's more of the gardens versus the forage. I usually toss my herbal garden into the forage side. The tomatoes are coming on. And so we have a retreat today, and tonight we're all eating dinner together, and tomorrow there's food. And so I was texting back and forth with Jennifer where we're staying for this. And she was like, well, I don't have any tomatoes. And I'm like, oh, I will bring the tomatoes. So I just chose my best tomatoes this morning to bring for taco night. And I think I'm going to bring a bowl of cherry tomatoes too, in case anybody just wants them to snack on. And other than that, when I get more tomatoes than I can use, I core them and I put them in a bucket with a lid. It's like a little bucket, kitchen food grade bucket, in the freezer. And then when I have enough to can, I'll can. So this is causing the race for salsa, which I probably talk about later in the show. But we do not have jalapeno peppers yet. I was supposed to grab jalapeno peppers from Jack Spirko's last week, and I forgot on my way out the door. I totally had room in my suitcase too, but that's okay. Tactical says he has a few that'll be ripe now. So the goal here is to get tomatoes, cilantro, and peppers all ripe at the same time so I can make enough salsa for the winter. And I don't have a great canning source, although I may actually go visit the Amish, depending on how many tomatoes I get from these plants, because I've always augmented with 50 or so pounds of tomatoes from outside sources, just so I don't have to raise as many tomato plants. I haven't been weighing how many pounds of tomatoes I get either, but tomatoes are doing great this year. They're just doing great. Now they're starting to look stressed from the oven turning on. So I need to think about if I hang a shade cloth curtain in front of the wall of tomatoes, but we'll see. We'll see. The peppers are about to be ready. So that'll be nice, because then I can pair the peppers with the tomatoes and make salsa. I've been planting green beans every 2 weeks in my garden in succession. And the first row of green beans is out, and it yielded only about 10 jars, 10 of the 30, I think, 10 or 12 of the 30 jars. So that's just informative. And then the Egyptian walking onion seeds. So Egyptian walking onions put seed heads on the top. So we have those now. It's time to plant those around to keep them going. And then Tactical cannot identify basil in my garden. I sent him up the other day to get basil. He couldn't find it anywhere. And then I went up the next day and I was like, it's there and there and there. But he brought me basil from his garden at that point. I was like, well, you could have done that to begin with. I just needed one bunch of basil for the stir fry because it would make it taste better. And then we are propagating comfrey. And it's time to start planting the fall garden, which is part of why we need the shade cloth to help cool the soil for germination at this time of year. So the oven is on and it's time to get the fall plants going. So I am going to direct seed some things in the garden and see how it goes. In particular, beets, because my beet crop this year is crappy. And I'm hoping that this next row of beets will actually yield some beets. I have enough canned beets from last year left that will be okay for pickled beets through the winter. But beets have been something I haven't been real stellar at growing. And so I've been trying hard on those this year because I don't have anybody to buy beets from. Next up, we'll talk about homegrown cooking. This is where I just highlight something that's coming off of the homestead. And I am to the bits and bops of whole animals part of the year. So I did a ham hock yesterday from our pigs that we raised here. And the way I did it is I took it and I cut some light slits in the ham hock. I did a dry rub of garlic, salt, and different herbs. I used a smoked paprika, which is delicious, and roasted that in the oven. The recipe I was looking at said 4 to 5 hours till it's done. It took about 3 at 350. In fact, I think I overcooked it a little bit. It went like way up in temperature and it was really good. And then I also have been adding the shade cloth to the garden. I have had a bunch of cucumbers coming out. So I'm also having cucumber summer like everybody else. So that has resulted in a need to think of cucumber recipes. So you guys know I'm sort of ketovore. I keep my carb count down. That's part of what I was doing on 75 Hard. At this time of year, I eat more vegetables than in the winter because they're coming fresh off the garden. And my thinking on that is that I can, like in season, it makes sense to eat the things that are coming off the garden. So I've been eating a lot of cucumbers, and cucumber salad is delicious. But what I've started doing at livingfreeintennessee.com is posting a recipe of the week. And I am focusing on cucumber recipes right now for all of y'all who have cucumbergeddon or like all of the cucumbers, so that you can think of other ways to use your cucumbers. And my favorite way is to use a mandolin to cut them really thin and then mix them with dill and mayonnaise or sour cream and garlic and salt and pepper. And just make sort of a creamy cucumber dill garlic salad. So delicious. Yes, Jenny says cucumber soup is perfect for summer. Cucumber soup is delicious. It's a cold soup that you make. So that is over at livingfreeintennessee.com, by the way. And if you're listening to this, it'll probably be like 1 or 2 posts under the podcast post on the website. But it's also it's an interesting way to eat. So I've also started doing little videos just on what we're doing, homegrown cooking, and what that looks like over on Instagram and TikTok. So you can just get a short view into how we're working with the things off the homestead. Because I realize that a lot of you who listen to me are homesteaders. So you're like, you could give me recipes, and you're welcome to do that. Nicole at livingfreeintennessee.com. But there are some folks kind of new to homesteading who are like, well, now I have 90 bushels of cucumbers. What do I do? Or too much squash. That's why I have a squash episode. So anyway, that's part of what's up around that situation. Next up is Holler Neighbors and Community. We had a whole community thing this week when Tactical cut his head, and it involved communicating with other neighbors too, because all I got was that he was bleeding everywhere. And so I alerted the other neighbors who I knew were home, and I was like, I'm on my way, but this is happening. So they were like ready to jump to. When I actually got with Tactical, I realized that I could handle it and called them off. But what we're using to communicate is Zello, which is a phone app. And it works great, except for when you don't have internet access. And luckily we had internet access because the cell networks are not doing that great in this area. And I think it's important if you're in a community to think about your communications. So we are going to be upping our communications game here a little bit, just because it seems like whenever somebody gets hurt, it's not conveniently by the front door, so I can just throw them in the car and take them to the emergency room or whatever. And that could have been a really bad situation had he passed out and not had any communications at all, because it would have been hours before I was like, where is Tactical? I haven't seen him in a while. And then I'd figure he was off like doing tactical things, and it wouldn't probably have been until the evening until I was like, I'm going to go look for Tactical. So that's something we're just kind of noodling on around here. And then I have a hip camper in this weekend, and they showed up with a dog, and I'm like, it's very clear, no dogs. Nope, they found a stray dog on the way here and picked them up, which is like, it's not a stray dog. It's a well-fed dog that was probably wandering around and got picked up. So now I'm trying to get this dog back to its home. But we didn't really, like, we don't need more dogs in the holler right now. So that's super fun. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. I'm hoping Tactical can take, because I'm leaving right after recording this. I'm hoping Tactical can take it to the vet and see if it has a microchip. Maybe I've already posted it on all the things. Maybe we'll get lucky and find its home. That's all that's happening from the network right now. Next up, we have infrastructure. This is where we talk about what we're building on the homestead. And the cabin electrical project has been sort of really slow. And the reason is every time we start it, something else comes up and gets in the way. So we've re-upped the final round of wiring we're doing on the cabin so that the solar system is more automated. So right now it's a manual switch from grid to solar. And we're going to make it so that it automatically happens. What that looks like is that there are parts of the cabin that will always run on battery, which required a sub panel because it goes from the panel to a sub panel. That sub panel is running off of battery. In between the sub panel and battery is the controller, which charges the battery. So it's like panel, controller, battery charge, and then the sub panel runs off the battery. So that controller makes it so it can charge from solar or electrical, depending on what it needs to charge from. And I really hope that Tactical eventually tunes in so he can come here and stop my dog from barking her face off. I don't know why she's barking her face off. There's no reason to be barking like that. Shut it! That probably didn't work. Oh, it kind of worked. So that system, as I said, has been manual, and that requires more maintenance when it's manual. It's not the end of the world, but looking forward to doing that piece and having it all the way done, because that just adds stability to the whole system here. And I'm really keen to get batteries going in my main house too. So that's something I'll be talking to Sean from Hack My Homestead about, just like, can we do, because I've already got the sub panel in my house. I've actually already got that piece done here pretty much. But getting the batteries here, even if I don't put panels up, would be nice, because we're having so much instability in the grid. And in fact, we are installing EMP shield devices here as well, because I haven't installed mine. And I realized, like, I'm telling you guys, you want to protect yourself against lightning. And I'm sitting here with 2 devices that need to go in on my house too. So that's all, like, it's sort of like the finishing, you know how you tie a bow and you do that last little pull? That's what's happening on those projects. And then we're doing another round of fencing. The perimeter fence is about 20 feet from being done, plus a gate. And I'm hoping that this will be done soon, so I stop losing my dog when she gets out. And it's been a slow go. It's the same as the electrical. It's like, we like to get things 99% done and not the last 1% done. So what I'm trying to say here is our focus is on finish right now rather than start. So that's happening as well. Hopefully that means that the new aquaponics system that I've been working on for 2 years will finally get implemented as well. I have IBC totes from John Willis that he helped us source, and because the original ones we cut in half and we're going to use as beds, and I was envisioning them up, and Tactical wants them touching the ground so that they don't freeze in the winter. I want them tall enough so that I don't have to I have all these half IBTC totes that I don't know what we're going to do with them, but I'm sorry if I cut out there for a second, guys, but that's okay. We'll find something to do with those. And then I'm trying to design anything like the aquaponics system with aging in mind, so that 20 years from now, I'm not like, why did I build that way? So I'm trying to make it mobility friendly. The only issue with that system is I have to go upstairs to get to it, but I can go a different way too if I need to. Or maybe we'll install an outdoor rock wall elevator for Nicole Sauce if she has mobility problems later in life. Anyway, those are all things going on in the homestead. And I do see a couple of all caps comments, which I will get to after the next segment, which is finances. This is where we talk about the income on the homestead. And this is where, once you create something like your homestead or your home or your suburban awesome place, you can generate income from the fact that you've created a thing of beauty. And what's been happening in the Holler Homestead over the last 3 years or so is it's just been every year a little cooler looking, every year a little bit more like something somebody might want to visit and check out. And so I opened up the hip camp again this year, and my first 2 campers, one didn't ever show up and the other one showed up. It was going to rain, and so they left and went to a hotel because they didn't want to get rained on. And so we've had hip camp income without the hip campers. And this time we have an actual hip camper. So I haven't marketed the hip camp much because why? Like that means there's people around. But we had hip campers arrive yesterday. They're staying for a couple of nights, and that just puts a little bit of money in the kitty. And it's not a lot of money. Like, it's not like I'm getting $100 a night for camping here. But what we have infrastructure wise is a nice camp area. We have an outdoor kitchen they can use if they want to. We have a black stone griddle if they want to use it. And there's a composting outhouse and outdoor shower. So it's not a terrible place to visit if you're like driving through or whatever. And every time we get money from something like that, we throw it into a project specific thing. So like I'll be getting probably $50 from this one, and it'll go in the jar to offset the zero turn mower that we got. So Tactical continues to lurk outside my window, causing barking. Hey, cut it out. He doesn't know I'm live, probably. So, Cece, leave it. Nope, they're just going to bark. So anyway, that's just a way that we take. And like if we would sell eggs, it would go into that too. I tend to keep like sheep money separate from everything else, or chicken money separate from everything else, so I can figure out if that business unit on the homestead is worth what we're putting into it from a financial standpoint. But it's kind of fun to see the hip camp income moving up. And what this means is that we're heading into fall camping season already. So we'll probably get maybe one more in August. Like most people are smart and don't camp here in the middle of August because it's hot as can be. But you turn the corner into September and it's cooling down at night. We tend to get through October people coming through the property who want to go check out the lake. So that's everything I've got for the week. Now I've got a couple of questions. News that doesn't suck says, how did you start so early? Well, I got up early and went for my walk, and I knew I needed to record this early so I could post it so I could leave town. So I just scheduled it that way. And that's the thing that 75 Hard has brought me, is a better understanding of what I really can get done in a day. And two, stopping to take the time to think about in advance, hey, these are all the things I need to do today, which I do, but I do it more now. And if I want to meet this benchmark, that means I have to start this thing earlier than I thought, and I've always done that. But like, I think typically had I been going out of town this week before 75 hard, you would have just gotten a replay episode today. And then I was like, well, with all of the family illness and deaths that have been happening, I have missed a number of sessions this year. And so I want to really keep the schedule going as much as possible. Jenny says T should keep an emergency kit with him. He gets hurt so often. He has one. I think with that one, he was not super prepared. He's prepared for like really bad bleeds, but he was not prepared. And that was a bad bleed, but it's like, you're not going to use a tourniquet on your head, right? Because then you die. We've changed what is going to be in his kit because he's not prepared for what happened there. And the bigger thing is, had he knocked himself out, we need to talk about how often should I maybe check in throughout the day when you're out doing the really dangerous homestead activity of driving a T-post into the ground, which ever since he got hurt from that, I have heard from so many people who've had the same exact thing happen and the same result, like lots of blood coming out of their head. I've never, it's so funny. I've driven so many T-posts. It's almost like, whatever, it's super easy. Well, I mean, it's hard work, but it's easy. It's not hard to learn. Apparently, it's not unusual that a T-post whacks you in the head and you get a bad cut. You're getting a zap for being up and at 'em. Thanks. All right. Okay, guys, that's everything for our homestead happenings for the week. As I mentioned, I'm doing a Q&A show next. So I only have a couple of questions in. If you want to get your questions in, email them to Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com or go to livingfreeintennessee.com. Click on contact, fill out that form, and they will come to me. With that, guys, go out, seize the world, make it a great week.